How does that
Look,
look?
I'm not saying that. You get some sense that there's a handful of stocks.
Look at that. I mean, you could tie that to the market. Bang.
My man, how you doing today?
Strong to very strong. How are you?
Well, good. Today's one of these days. We spend a lot of time talking about markets, and I'm seeing a couple stocks that I really felt like I wanted to own getting away from me, and sometimes it's the trades that you don't make that actually haunt you more than the ones you make, even the ones that go horribly wrong. And so I'm just curious, give me examples of that.
Things that you've missed out on. Well, I see behind you once again, you have your screen up and you have the great Sean Connery. Now, everybody knows Sean Connery from The Rock and some of these other movies, but of course, Sean Connery was the original James Bond. And what's interesting is Cary Grant, of all people, passed on being James Bond in Dr. No.
Well, and look, I mean, Connery is, whether you go Untouchables or whether he's had some remarkable roles outside of his Bond roles. He is Bond, and he's my favorite Bond. I mean, I don't know how you feel about Patrick Craig or Dennis Craig or
Roger
whatever
Craig.
Roger Craig.
It would be Daniel Craig. I think, to me, Daniel Craig is the most believable Bond in terms of a lot of different things, but Sean Connery is James Bond, if that makes sense.
And was it Roger Moore, who I think probably held down the fort in between these guys? There might have been. There was a Pierce Brosnan, actually.
Sure.
By the way, turn your head slightly to the left. Let me just, So turn. Stop. And make kind of make a face, just like a serious, dude, uncanny. I'm surprised they didn't tap you on the shoulder. So anyway, I mean, yeah, Cary Grant. Look, I think Cary Grant doesn't really need to worry about his place in history. I mean, I think he is Hollywood royalty. But Connery is a guy that I think he fits under that description of men respected and maybe wanted to be him. Women, I'll just not finish the rest of that sentence, but they admired him. They
admire him. Now, in history, in theatrical and movie history, a lot of actors and actresses have passed up on roles. Check this out. For example, Henry Winkler, the Fonz. He could have been Danny Zuko. Think about that.
So, first of all, I mean, Henry Winkler wasn't believable as the Fonz. Why would he be believable as Danny Zuko, where he actually had to race a car down on Thunder Road or wherever they were? And by the way, Cha-Cha, I think, is underrated, but we'll leave that alone. Frenchie, I found kind of annoying. And obviously, Sandra Dee, look, if the Fonz had a chance to kind of dance with her in that last scene, good stuff. But I don't think I would have found him believable as Danny Zuko. So good for Travolta.
I love Stockard Channing in Grease. I also loved her in The West Wing. She was the first lady. I thought her performance was excellent, in a word. Here's another one for you. Think about this for a second. We all know that Jodie Foster was Clarice Starling in the great Silence of the Lambs. But guess who passed on it? Michelle Pfeiffer passed on that. Thoughts?
Look, I mean, this was probably right around the time she was coming off of a great Scarface role. So, I mean, maybe she needed to sit one down. I mean, there was a very challenging, emotional, role she had to play as Tony Montana's wife and wife of drug lord. Pfeiffer, Pfeiffer is I think she's fantastic and actually probably peaked in the 80s, and that's not a bad thing. Has gone away quietly. If you think of some of the deals on Wall Street for companies that may have actually peaked and then walked away from deals, I mean, it's interesting. And I'll just also point out recently the deal that PayPal brought up where they tried to buy Pinterest. And again, it was a deal that I think Wall Street was not happy about. PayPal, a company that I think at the time was probably trading, 20 times sales, et cetera. But again, a company very expensive. Made some sense for them to go out and do something. They didn't like that Pinterest deal.
Yeah, PayPal basically said there was no truth to it. But to your point, I don't think the street took too kindly to it because it was PayPal, or it was the street saying, PayPal, maybe their growth days are behind them and they need to buy growth, which is problematic, especially when you have to pay up for it. I'll say this about Michelle Pfeiffer. The Fabulous Baker Boys. I thought she was stupendous in that. But before we get back into market stuff, I'll give you one more. Think about how the world would be different if Al Pacino and not Harrison Ford was that Han Solo cat in Star Wars.
So do you think Harrison Ford becomes Indy if he's not Han Solo?
Well, having never seen Star Wars or any movie around Star Wars prior, sequels, prequels, I have no idea. I think Harrison Ford was destined for greatness once he was in, get ready for it, American Graffiti, Tim Seymour.
Yeah, interesting. He was a mechanic or something. Was he a gearhead? What was he? I mean, I don't know. Was he working on his T-Bird? I mean, I don't know.
I think everybody was involved in cars in one way, shape, or form. Of course, Richard Dreyfuss. We've talked about Ron Howard. You've brought up that Shirley Feeney was in American Graffiti as well.
Not Carmine, not the Big Ragu, who I don't think did get his own show. We talked about this, but how about a Suzanne Summers as the lady in the car? Really never has a role been more powerful, again, without really uttering a line, or did she utter? I don't know. So Cindy or Janet, if you had to, would you rather? Cindy or Janet?
Cindy,
and you know where I'm going.
Yeah, Cindy Williams I thought was great. I mean, I thought she was great in American Graffiti. She was edgy in American Graffiti.
That's not where I'm going with this.
She took, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know where you're going. I apologize.
I was at Three's Company, right? Janet, Joyce DeWitt, and I think she was wasn't she Cindy? Suzanne Summers, wasn't she? I think she was.
Listen, again, you're not going to believe me. I know you were probably a huge Three's Company fan, or what was the name of that show?
Who wasn't?
That was.
All right.
It wasn't.
Yeah,
it wasn't my jam.
You never saw it.
I saw it,
Dude,
and I was a huge Don Knotts fan, but I just never. It just that humor never really resonated with me.
Well, look, if I could beam myself back in time, I'd be sitting on a bar stool at the Regal Beagle, just watching the world go around, which was, really what was going on. So
let me ask you a quick question. Do you have time for
Go.
Cher? Because you just said about beaming yourself back in time. That song, "If I Could Turn Back Time." Are you offended by it? That's Cher calling you right now, I'm sure, by the way.
I mean, I'm offended by whoever's calling me now during commercial break. They should know better. It might be a traitor trying to get me on an order here. So look, I don't think you can be offended by anything Cher does. I think you have to understand what you're getting with Cher, and back to Sonny and Cher. I mean, I think there was no genius going on there. It was just Cher was letting you know she was charismatic. She was Cher, and I don't know how Sonny put up with her for that long. I really don't know.
I think Sonny was a real genius behind that. I think the brilliance of Cher is her talent. I think the brilliance of the pair was Sonny Bono allowing himself to be the foil to Cher. He was very selfless in that, and I think Cher spoke to that years later.
So if we were talking about variety shows of the 70s for 400, Chuck, the Carol Burnett show. I mean, Tim Conway, Harvey Korman. I mean, they might be some of the funniest guys that ever did comedy. Everybody had like a variety show in the 70s. What was that? I mean, were there a lot of skills going on?
Johnny Cash, the great man in black, who I'm sort of eerily reminiscent of right now in my gear.
Yes, you are.
He had his own variety show. I think it was like the Johnny Cash Hour. By the way, on my Spotify playlist of 715 songs, I have 3 Johnny Cash numbers on it, Tim.
Which ones? What do you got?
Folsom Prison is on it. I Got Stripes is on it, and Wheel of Fire is on it.
All right, so I'm gonna make you walk the line here on give me an example, in corporate America of a deal that should have gone down that didn't, or one that they wish they had done that deal.
I think General Electric rused the day they weren't able to buy Honeywell, and I said Wheel of Fire. That was clearly a movie about drag racing. It was Ring of Fire is the Johnny Cash song.
Okay, and Wheel of Fortune is still on TV and probably was in the 70s. Good for Vanna White and what's his name?
Ted Leonsis. I'm not sure. I can't think of his name, but it's not Ted Leonsis.
All right, what I'm sure of is, guys, somewhere around 6 p.m. or somewhere in your hotel room or somewhere by your gate, you can check out Commercial Break every single day. I'm Tim Seymour.
I'm Guy Adami, and collectively, Tim,
we are Commercial Break.